Hello everyone, my name is Rana Ahmad and this presentation is based on my master thesis of counseling, psychology and psychotherapy. It's titled Between Fear and Favors, the Influence of Complex Trauma on People-Pleasing Behavior in College Students. So starting off, trauma is widespread. However, complex trauma is specifically impactful. It's a type of trauma where individuals experience harmful events intentionally caused by others. It's different from other types of trauma in the sense that it's ongoing and prolonged with harm occurring repeatedly. As a result of complex trauma, there is complex PTSD. It has the same symptoms of PTSD. However, in the ICD-11, they added 3 other symptoms, which are affective dysregulation, negative self-concept, as well as relational struggles. Moving on to the purpose of the study, it's evident through research that complex trauma and people-pleasing behaviors and experiences are related to one another. However, there is scarce research that directly links the both of them together. The argument here is that there is an association between complex trauma and people-pleasing, with people-pleasing being viewed as a survival mechanism in response to experiencing complex trauma. And the aim of this qualitative research is to explore the influence of complex trauma on people-pleasing behaviors. So the research question is, how does complex trauma influence people-pleasing behaviors in young adults? Moving on to the methodology and data analysis, the design was a qualitative approach to explore people's lived experiences and how complex trauma shapes their people-pleasing behaviors. Participants were a total of 4, 3 of which were females and 1 was male, ages from 22 to 29. Participants were Greek and Egyptians. 1 participant was recruited from the American College of Greece through flyers, and the 3 other participants were from the American University in Cairo, and they were recruited via a Facebook group. The interviews were semi-structured, 3 of which were online, and 1 was in person at the American College of Greece. They lasted from 30 to 60 minutes, and consent forms were obtained. The briefing statements and the support resources were provided afterwards. The interviews were transcribed, and the analysis was the interpretive phenomenological analysis to focus on participants' lived experiences. Moving on to the results and discussion, the first master theme was growing up in an unstable household. It was found that participant childhood was marked by emotional neglect, inconsistency, criticism, and lack of validation. Overall, the environment was fearful, which gave the participant the message of love and safety is conditional, and it had to be earned through compliance. It made them suppress their needs and try to adapt to other people in order to avoid criticism and conflict and gain connection. The second theme is the impact of an unstable upbringing. Due to the unstable upbringing, there was fear of abandonment, hypervigilance. There was also primitive actions to avoid being left or abandoned. There was the self-worth being tied to other people's approval. There was the inner conflict between one's identity and the identity of pleasing others and adapting to this other person, which created confusion. So they further suppress their need and experience guilt when they start asserting themselves in different contexts, which made them lose their sense of identity. Moving on to the third theme, which is finding ways to navigate life in a relationship. It showed that participants used people-pleasing to manage insecurity and avoid rejection. They put people's needs above their own in order to gain validation and connection, which made them cross their own boundaries. They started suppressing their own feelings to keep relationships stable, even if that comes to the cost of their own well-being. And this created resentment, exhaustion, and self-neglect. The final theme is struggling to break the cycle. It highlights the inner conflict participants feel when they recognize the emotional cost of people-pleasing. After long periods of self-neglect, they reach a point of exhaustion where they must choose between setting boundaries or continuing to give without reciprocity. They started being cautious about other people's intention and trying to learn how to say no and set boundaries. So there was this tension between self-protection and fear of loss. General significance of the study. So people-pleasing can be seen as a trauma response. People pleasers struggle with self-worth and overgiving. There's the emotional insecurity and reassurance-seeking behavior, which is connected to fear of abandonment and the participants' hypervigilance. There's the difficulty in setting boundaries. The good thing is that there is a capacity for change that exists through self-reflection, and the participants going through emotional exhaustion to help them become more selective and shift their behaviors. For the clinical relevance, finding can help therapists in helping clients set boundaries, express emotion, and build healthier self-image. For the strength and limitation of the study, there was flexibility due to the format of the interviews, and there is the successful integration that linked people-pleasing to emotional neglect, abandonment, and trauma. The limitation, however, is the small sample size. However, it was diverse. There is also gender imbalance with the females being more than the male participants. Also, the topic sensitivity created issue in the recruitment process. For the conclusion, this study offered a strong foundational insight into people-pleasing and trauma. This highlights the need for future research in regards to larger and more diverse samples, broader gender and cultural representation. Thank you.